Okay, we're here with Grandma with the beautiful Wasatch Mount Timpanogos, Wasatch Mountain Range behind us, changing colors to another season. And this is going to be a special um, honor flight episode. So I believe this is episode 4. So
Thought you were going to wait till after.
we're going to do it afterwards to ask about your experiences as well. So you have the whir of the air conditioner behind us. Hopefully you can hear okay. And hopefully the battery holds out. It said it was full when we left, but now it says it's in a quarter, so we'll find out. So are you excited?
Getting that way.
Yeah.
I haven't really been too excited until now.
You leave in 2 days?
Yeah,
Tuesday?
I'm going up to Lynette and Ray's and stay overnight Monday night because we have to be at the airport at 6 o'clock.
Wow. And do you know what type of airplane you're flying on?
I think it's Southwestern.
Oh, it is. I thought that.
It's in through flight. So.
Okay. I thought they were going to fly you on a military cargo
Oh no,
plane. Just drop you off with a parachute.
that
So-
would have been fun.
So I thought I'd ask a couple World War II questions as long as we have time with the battery. Obviously, Pearl Harbor was today's September 11th, and so we tend to reflect. And I know the question that everyone's asking themselves is, where were you on September 11th, 2001? And before that, of course, the question is always, where were you on December 7th when Pearl Harbor was attacked? So where were you, Grandma, and what were your thoughts, and what were you thinking at the time when that happened?
At the time that happened, that President Roosevelt told us about it, I was at my girlfriend's house, and we were on our way up the stairs. I remember that vividly, that when it came on and we stood there and listened to it. So that was really shocking.
And that was on the radio.
Yes, on the radio. We didn't have TVs then.
And you were in the Vail, South Dakota area at the time.
Yes, at my friend's house.
And how old were you?
17 or 18?
Were any of your brothers in the military at that time?
No, yes, they were. 2 of them were. 3 of them were.
What branches?
My older brother was in the Navy. He was a chief warrant officer in charge of. He ended up being in charge of salvaging some of the ships that went down. And doing that, he got the bends one day when the Japanese came over to bomb them, and they pulled him up too fast, so he got the bends. And he was in the hospital about 6 months before we even knew he was still alive.
Oh, wow.
So.
I mean, I know up to the point of Pearl Harbor, the U.S. had kind of been holding back. They've been supporting their allies, but they hadn't become allies on the battlefield necessarily. And at that point, with your brothers being enlisted, what were your thoughts, knowing that this would surely launch us into the war?
Well, it was only a little bit after that my first brother went over to. He was the second brother, but he was the first one to go overseas, and he was in the National Guard, and they called them up first because they didn't have enough military, and so they went overseas in 1941. No, yeah, they went over. They were over in Ireland. They went to Ireland, and then they went to North Africa. And from there into other places in Italy, and I think he spent more time in Italy than he did Germany. But
And he was in what branch?
he was in the Army. Well, he was in the National Guard, which was the Army.
National Guard.
And they were the engineer corps. They would go and make the bridges and things like that.
So the Japanese kind of caught us sleeping, and it sounds like with you saying we didn't have an army back then at that time, that clearly we weren't really prepared, and the country had to kind of throw it into high gear real quick, which is why you ended up eventually as a Rosie the Riveter working on the bombers. What what was your sense of involvement, and your, what did that mean to you?
Well, at that time, it was just a shock, and knowing that my brothers were all gone. My younger brother, I guess, wasn't gone yet then, but shortly afterwards, because he graduated that year, and he joined the Merchant Marines. And he was in the Merchant Marines for a while, and then he joined the Army parachute troopers.
Okay.
And so
And who's your youngest brother?
Lyle,
Lyle, and then in the Navy was
Vernon,
Vernon, and then
the other one was Elwood, but we
Elwood.
always called him Bob.
Right. Okay. Very good.
So,
What did you have feelings of anger or anxiety or anything like that in dealing with some of the things that were coming down?
well, at that time, I don't think I did that much. It was just something brand new. We didn't know what it was all about, but I did later on, when there were so many more young men going into the service and you saw them leaving all the time, and you realized it was really getting bad. And then I don't remember what day they started the war over. We got into the war over in Europe, but it wasn't too long after that.
No, it was pretty quick. Yeah. What about Grandpa? He was in the Coast Guard. Was he already enlisted in the Coast Guard before the bombing on Pearl Harbor, or was that afterwards?
No, I think he went in 1942, if I
Okay.
remember right. And he got out in 46, so.
Okay. And then he saw action. He was sent in Guam, right? Is that correct?
He was in Guam, but he wasn't in any of the
Any
battles.
action. Okay, that's good. Good for him.
So,
Good for us.
yeah.
What about where were you when the bombs were dropped on Japan the two separate times? And what were your thoughts when you heard that?
Well, we were excited, of course, and when that happened, we figured it wouldn't be too long before the war was over, because that was a
Pretty
mighty
devastating.
big thing. And but we kept working at that time. I remember at VE Day that we had a big celebration, a big parade, and my girlfriend had a car, and we would go up and down the street, and we were just
Hoot and
having a
holler.
lot of fun.
Well, what about the sacrifices that were made? I know that initially you said that it didn't affect you necessarily, being in a farming community that mostly living off the land anyways. The depression didn't necessarily hurt you. But what about sacrifices from the war?
Well, we had rationing. They rationed gas, and you could only get so much gas, and you could only get so much sugar. But it seemed like we always had enough. Mom always baked a lot. It seemed like we always had enough. But I don't know. They had rationing on it, and we had stamps that you had to use to buy different things.
Just to kind of limit what
Yeah,
you
I
got.
found one of Dad's ration books one day.
Yeah, I have a few that my dad passed on to me from his family too.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. What any type of odd sacrifices? I remember hearing. I think it was you that told me about the pantyhose. You couldn't wear pantyhose, or was that something else I read?
Well, we didn't have silk stocking then.
Okay.
We had, they were pretty thick and heavy, but we did get some. We had knee-high things that came up to our knees, and up above our knees, really. And we rolled them with elastic garters, we called them.
Oh, okay.
And
To
you
keep them up.
Yeah, because they didn't have the pantyhose yet then.
Okay. Well, and you know me, a guy, I don't know the difference. So, were there any other type of odd sacrifices that you remember that stuck out? Because I know that steel was a huge issue. They needed every scrap of steel and metal that they could use, and
Yeah, they did. They used a lot of old farm equipment that was just sitting around, A lot of them were through using it, but they're still sitting on their properties, and they used a lot of that. And
Was there a sense of in that type of situation when people were called upon to make those type of sacrifices? Was there a sense of it's mine, why should I do it, or was it just?
I sure don't remember anything like that at all.
And I kind of
Everybody became very patriotic and very happy to make sacrifices and help any way they could during the war. And it's a generation that has stayed more patriotic, I think, than any other generation.
and that's why I asked, because I think that's an interesting point, because I can see people these days having problems with having to make those sacrifices, whereas but if you look back to September 11th, I think everyone, didn't matter if you were short, tall, fat, skinny, white, black, Jew, Christian, it didn't matter. Everyone kind of bonded together. The American
Yeah,
flag was out.
That's the way it was
Yeah.
during the war. And, even we had German prisoners working around our area. I don't think we ever had them working for us, but our neighbors did.
Interesting.
And they were in a camp up toward Bellefouche, and they would go pick them up in their trucks and bring them back down to the fields.
And these were German soldiers that had been captured in war,
Yeah, and
not necessarily American Germans that
Yeah.
For internment or anything like that.
no, and we lived in an area that there were a lot of
Oh yeah.
German Russians. Most of them came from an area in Russia, but they were Germans. And, there was a lot of problem there because people would call them Nazis, and
Yeah.
they didn't want to have anything to do with them. And the boys wouldn't go with the German girls because they didn't want to go with the Nazis.
Yeah.
And it was pretty sad, but a couple of the guys did marry the German girls.
Really. What are your thoughts today, being September 11th, 15 years ago, when you heard about the towers coming down? What memories come to mind about that day?
Well, we were up at Herb's cousin in Montana at the time, and we were just getting ready to have breakfast, and we had the news on, and it came on, and so it was right when we were ready to sit down and eat breakfast. And what a shock to watch that plane go into that building and have it crumble. It was horrible.
Yeah. It still is to think about it.
Yes, it is.
I haven't been able to watch TV. It's just too. You have to remember, but it's just. There's not many times in your life that you want to remember things like that.
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
interesting. Well, the battery's about to die. So are you looking forward to anything in particular about your trip to Washington D.C.?
No, well, I've seen quite a bit of it, but I'm especially grateful that Lynette's going to get to go and see a lot of the things that she hasn't seen.
Yeah.
And I just talked to my daughter, Terry, the stepdaughter, and she's going to meet us at the hotel there
Oh, good.
and have dinner with us, and visit during the night. So
That's great.
it's going to be fun. But I'm looking forward probably more than the actual memorial spots to the going to Arlington Cemetery and watching the changing of the guards.
Yeah. That'll be a neat experience.
Yeah, I've done it before, but I really enjoyed it. It's something I like to do.
Well, it's a great opportunity. We're happy and excited for you to go. I hope your health keeps your energy up. You've been doing really good these days. Hopefully
I
that
hope so.
is the case, and then when you come home, we'll be all here waiting for you. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
write letters on my chest and take off my shirts.
We got the itinerary, so
You'll be busy.
yeah, and we get an escort to the plane, to the airport, and then at the airport they play the band while we board the plane,
That's great.
the brass band, and so it's going to be interesting. Lynette takes a lot of pictures, so she'll
Yeah.
probably have a lot of pictures.
Yeah, and you'll have a fun time. We're looking forward to that, and you'll be busy, but it'll be a good memory for
It'll
Lynette
be,
as well as for you.
yeah, it'll be a good memory.
Well, our next one will be to follow up on that, and so you can tell us all about it in a 20 to 30 minute segment. So look forward to that. And if you guys have any questions about her trip, of course, as usual, you can email me or text me or Facebook me those questions, and we'll make sure we ask her. Until then, love you, Grandma, and have fun.
Thank you. Love you too. Thank you.